2025 CSLB Contractors License Law and Business Questions and Answers, Part 4. By Paint Thinner Gang. These are practice questions. These are not the exact same questions the state will give you. These Q&A will help you pass by studying them. When is an employee allowed to view their own personnel file? C. Whenever they wish. What is a key purpose of consumer representation outlined in Article 4? A. To advocate for consumers in administrative and judicial proceedings. What is the main goal of consumer education programs under the DCA? B. To empower consumers with knowledge and resources. What does Section 471.3 require? A. Uniform statewide guidelines for consumer protection program. What is the consequence of non-compliance with Section 125.9? A. Issuance of citations and fines. What must be disclosed on DCA's public website per Section 139.5? A. Quarterly updates about licensees. What is the role of the Division of Investigation under the DCA? A. Conducting investigations and appointing health quality officers. What action is required under Section 313.5? A. Publication of a consumer information bibliography. What governs personal information and privacy protection under the DCA? A. Article 7. Which section addresses the consequences of falsifying licensing exams? A. Section 123. What is the primary purpose of the Contractors State License Board, CSLB? B. To regulate and license California contractors. What must contractors provide before obtaining a local permit? A. Proof of compliance with local business tax requirements. How many members make up the Contractors State License Board? B. 15 members. When is the CSLB scheduled for legislative review? C. By January 1, 2025. What is the CSLB's highest priority? B. Protecting the public. What is required for a contractor's license to remain valid? B. Continuous compliance with local and state laws. What is a qualifying individual under the contractor's license law? A. The individual responsible for supervising work under the license. Which action can the CSLB take against unlicensed contractors? D. Both B and C. How are complaints against contractors handled by the CSLB? A. Through mediation or investigation. What is the statute of limitations for prosecuting violations of license laws? C. 4 years. What is the penalty for contracting without a license? A. A fine of up to $10,000 and possible imprisonment. What must contractors include in advertisements? B. Their CSLB license number. What happens if a contractor fails to notify CSLB of a qualifying individual's disassociation? A. The license becomes inactive after 90 days. What is the purpose of contractor classification under CSLB regulations? B. To specify the type of work contractors are licensed to perform. What is prohibited under the CSLB's advertising rules? B. Advertising services outside the scope of the license classification. What is a mechanic's lien? A. A tool for subcontractors and suppliers to secure payment for work. How often must contractors renew their license? B. Every 2 years. What is required in a home improvement contract? A. A detailed project timeline and payment schedule. What does the CSLB's Enforcement Division primarily focus on? B. Investigating complaints and ensuring compliance with licensing laws. Who can file a complaint against a contractor with the CSLB? C. Consumers, contractors, and public officials. What is required for a contractor's license application? A. Proof of a qualifying individual's experience. What document must contractors provide before soliciting public works contracts? C. Proof of valid licensing and classifications. What does the Solar Energy System Restitution Program address? B. Consumer restitution in cases of contract violations. When does a contractor's license automatically expire? B. If not renewed within 5 years of the expiration date. What is the primary purpose of CSLB's arbitration program? A. To resolve disputes between contractors and consumers. What does B&P 7107 prohibit? A. Abandonment of construction projects without legal excuse. How can contractors verify compliance with workers' compensation requirements? D. Both A and C. What does the CSLB's computerized enforcement tracking system monitor? B. Consumer complaints and violations. Who enforces contractor bond requirements? A. The CSLB. What is required in the event of a contractor's license suspension? B. Filing of a disciplinary bond. What does the Contractors State License Board, CSLB, oversee? B. Licensing and regulation of California contractors. Under which title and division of the California Code of Regulations is CSLB governed? B. Title 16, Division 8. What is the primary purpose of CSLB's arbitration program? A. Resolving disputes between contractors and consumers. What is required for a contractor's license renewal? B. Payment of renewal fees and compliance with regulations. What does Article 5 of the CSLB Rules and Regulations cover? B. Renewal of licenses. What is the role of Article 8 in the CSLB regulations? B. Establishing citation procedures and penalties. What is the fee for renewing an active contractor's license? B. $450. What happens if a contractor's renewal fee check is dishonored? B. A $10 service charge is imposed. How long is a contractor's license valid before it requires renewal? B. 2 years. What is outlined in Article 4 of the CSLB regulations? B. Written examination requirements. What classification is required to operate as a specialty contractor? C. Any classification specified in Section 7058 of the Business and Professions Code. What must contractors disclose when advertising their services? B. CSLB license number. What is the consequence of performing work outside a contractor's classification? B. Possible suspension or revocation of the license. How are examination questions managed under CSLB guidelines? B. The registrar reviews and revises questions as needed. What is the penalty for failing to comply with CSLB bond requirements? D. Issuance of a citation. What information is included in a bond posted by a contractor? B. Security to ensure compliance with laws. What is a blanket performance and payment bond? A. A bond covering multiple projects for a contractor. How often must blanket bonds be certified? B. Biennially. What is the minimum qualification for arbitrators under CSLB's arbitration program? C. No less than 2 years of experience in dispute resolution. What is outlined in Article 7 of the CSLB Rules and Regulations? B. Special provisions. What is the focus of CSLB's disciplinary guidelines? A. Standardizing penalties for violations. How does CSLB define advertising? B. Any written or verbal representation made to solicit work. What is required to reactivate an inactive license? A. Payment of the renewal fee for an active license. What is required for a citation to be appealed? A. Submission of an appeal within 15 days of issuance. How are violations of Business and Professions Code Section 7028.7 evaluated? B. Using criteria established in Article 8. What does CSLB require in the event of a structural defect identified by a contractor? A. Immediate notification to the client and CSLB. What must be included in a contractor's examination application? B. Documentation of qualifying experience. What section outlines fees for examinations and licenses? A. Article 1.5. What does CSLB's computerized enforcement tracking system monitor? B. Consumer complaints and disciplinary actions. What must contractors provide for work exceeding $25,000? B. A performance bond. What is the primary purpose of OSHA? B. To ensure safe and healthful working conditions. What is the first step to take when encountering a hazardous situation on a job site? B. Report the hazard immediately. What document must contractors provide to ensure worker safety concerning hazardous materials? A. Material Safety Data Sheet, MSDS. What is the maximum travel distance to a fire extinguisher in a work area? C. 75 feet. What is the key focus of OSHA's Injury and Illness Prevention Program, IIPP? B. Reducing workplace injuries and illnesses. When must safety equipment be worn on a construction site? C. At all times when on site. What is the minimum depth at which a trench must have protective systems in place? C. 5 feet. What should an employee do if required safety devices are missing from tools? B. Notify the contractor or supervisor. What is a near-miss incident? B. A situation where an injury almost occurred. How often must toolbox or tailgate safety meetings be conducted? C. Every 10 working days. What is the penalty for a serious violation of OSHA regulations? D. Up to $25,000. Who is responsible for ensuring that safety equipment is used on the job site? C. The contractor. What is the purpose of lockout-tagout procedures? C. To disable and label equipment during maintenance. What should a worker do in case of a chemical spill? B. Evacuate the area and notify the supervisor. What is required when working near electrical lines? D. Both A and C. Which type of fire extinguisher should be used for electrical fires? Class C. What action should be taken if an injury occurs on a job site? B. Provide first aid and document the incident. When should an employer provide safety training to employees? D. All of the above. What is the purpose of a fall protection system? B. To prevent workers from falling off elevated surfaces. How should hazardous materials be stored on a construction site? A. In sealed containers, away from ignition sources. What is required if scaffolding exceeds 10 feet in height? D. Both B and C. What is the key element of an emergency action plan, EAP? D. All of the above. What should workers wear to prevent hearing loss in loud environments? A. Earmuffs or earplugs. What is the purpose of a safety data sheet, SDS? B. To provide information on hazardous substances. What is the first step in a hazard assessment? B. Identifying potential hazards in the workplace. What type of ladder should be used near electrical work? C. Fiberglass ladder. What is required for tools and equipment used in confined spaces? A. Pre-use inspection. What should be done with defective equipment? A. Mark it out of service and remove it from the job site. What must be done before using a new piece of machinery? D. All of the above. What is the minimum clearance required when working near energized power lines of up to 50 kilovolts? B. 10 feet.